Hello, everybody. Welcome back to CUSA All Access. This is Dylan Simmons alongside Ryan Martinulich and Baby Gator. Fellas, how are we doing here today?
I don't know, Matt. You want to take this one over?
I got you. You know what? I'm having a great day. It's been a day. We just you're upstairs talking about the college football playoffs and their recent rankings.
Yep, we were.
With the hypotheticals, it's always fun. It was a pretty solid day. As for the CSA action, I know there's a lot of seasons kicking underway and some seasons also wrapping up pretty soon. So, the older seasons are leaving, but you got some new seasons coming on. So you're getting plenty of action in the sports world for CSA. So we're in good hands so far.
Well said. Well said. Dylan, how are you?
I am doing fantastic. I think it's the best time of year when it comes to Conference USA and maybe college sports in general because all the major sports are just intersecting at once and we get everything. So I'm excited to talk this week. I think it's going to be a fantastic, phenomenal episode. So I think we should get to it. We saw some football action this past week, obviously. So, football action we did. So I guess we should get started with that. So Middle Tennessee, New Mexico State, I think is a good place to get started because New Mexico State sealed their bowl bid for this season, and we also saw Middle Tennessee lose out on their bowl bid. They're now 2-7. So, guys, what did we think of this game?
I mean, if you just wanted a defensive slugfest or to witness what an offensive coordinator's nightmare looks like,
yes,
you got to see it firsthand.
Or you just watch Iowa play.
That's another nightmare.
Man,
that's the cornfield nightmare.
That's the cornfield nightmare.
This is a desert nightmare.
Yeah.
Come on.
Oh.
Shout out to the Iowa punter.
Yeah.
Seriously.
Yes.
MVP of that team.
As for the game takeaway, I just want to give the flowers to Diego Pavia. He's really put this team on his back, turned their season around after a little rocky start there at the beginning. And, I like the competitiveness I've seen out of the Aggies. And all around, again, it wasn't a pretty game. It's one of those games where you're just like, you want it to end. It was one of those games of, if we can get into the end zone just once or, one more time than the other team, you look like you're going to win because no one was able to move the ball pretty much. It was a pretty slow affair. You had, I think, Vadiato rushed for almost 100 yards. He was the leading rusher for the Blue Raiders.
He was.
But then Pavia also just, again, put the team on his back, carry them to, a victory. And just overall, interesting to see how, he's able to take this team and turn them around for the best.
You mentioned Pavia and having almost 290 yards of total offense. But really it was that defensive stand kind of late in the fourth quarter in their own red zone, kind of holding the Blue Raiders. Terrific job at keeping Vadiato at bay because he was essentially that entire offense despite the turnover. He was kind of what kept that offensive moving in the second half to give the Blue Raiders any kind of resemblance of a chance of making it out there of Las Cruces with a win. But yeah, hats off to the defense there for the Aggies.
Yeah, I think it was a defensive coordinator slugfest. Honestly, I was like, you stole my thunder there because that's exactly what I was going to say. I was actually expecting a bit of a shootout in this game, and I was completely on the opposite end of that because we only saw 20 total points all night. I think that Middle Tennessee defensively kind of did what they needed to do, though. I expected Diego Pavia to have a big night. He only put up 13 total points, though. And the offense that he generated wasn't crazy. It was 220, no passing touchdowns, and he even threw an interception. So the defense got the breaks that they needed. I think what's agonizing for Middle is that they had that go their way, a unit that has struggled lately because they gave up, make sure I got this correct, 35 against Liberty, 30 against Jack State, and 31 against Louisiana Tech. So you've got your defense doing what it needs to do. But then you play this game, and all of a sudden it's the offense that's having issues. And it wasn't so much the turnovers, although there were a couple of those, I believe. It was just the execution late that really hurt them. They had one touchdown all game, the pass from Vadiato to DJ England Chisholm. But it's just wasn't enough at the end of the day. You with 7 points on the board, you're not going to be able to beat a team like New Mexico State with that kind of production. And again, it was 15 yards away. 15 yards away from the end zone. So that's got to be a tough thing for them to swallow. But like you mentioned, hats off to the New Mexico State defense because they were the true stars of this game. We had Dylan Early had an interception in this one. Jordan Vincent, Keyshawn Elliott were getting after the ball all night. And those guys, they balled out. And they kept Middle Tennessee from really exploding in the rushing game. I mean, Vadiato was the top guy, 96 rushing yards, but we didn't see a lot of Frank the Tank. We didn't see a lot of Jaden Krettel. Yeah, that is how you say it. Sorry, I get the names mixed up sometimes. But yeah, it was really about New Mexico State's defense. And I think the question that really arises from this is, if you're Middle Tennessee, let's put ourselves in the shoes of a Blue Raider fan at this point. What is the season looking like moving forward, and what is the motivation to keep going now that you've lost your bowl hopes? How do you find that motivation, I guess is the question.
Well, somehow Vegas still likes them because they open as an 11.5-point favorite against FIU.
Against FIU, yeah.
So obviously there's something either wrong with Florida International, or there's something very right with the Blue Raiders at home, despite struggling at Johnny Red Floyd Stadium all season.
They have 1-2 at home.
Yeah, but that's 2 games, and Louisiana Tech and
Murray State. Yeah.
So not the best competition.
Those 2 leagues against Colorado State and
Jacksonville
State.
Yeah. So but obviously there's still something to look forward to. You still have a chance to at least finish out with 3 straight wins. Get into the off season and really work out the kinks.
Yeah.
And I think that's what you just want to get through the season on high hopes, and then move forward to 2024 and look to reclaim some CUSA glory for the Blue Raiders. But right now, you just got to love the fact that you're almost a 2-touchdown lead against the Panthers.
Yeah.
That's basically it.
And I mean, it's one of those things like everyone asks like, what's their motivation? I mean, those players they're still going to play.
Right.
They still have a future to play for.
Yep.
So that's their motivation. No matter how bad your team is, you yourself can still improve your stock. You yourself can still improve, your future.
Yes.
And so it comes to that as just, for fan-wise, what's my motivation to watch this team? The motivation here is you still have years with Vadiato at quarterback. And you've seen a lot of bright spots from Vadiato, especially in his, ability to kind of take over this offense, at the start of the season. And he's a do-it-all quarterback. He's leading your team, in the air game a lot, doesn't turn the ball over, and is also able to extend plays and be mobile. So, I mean, if you're a Blue Raiders fan, that's something you look forward to. You want to see what, these bright spots of Vadiato and, his connections with his receivers and all that. But on the flip side, back to the game, there's just a lot of plays that just seem to be a gut punch if you're Middle Tennessee. I think of it, I think it was that last drive right before half, Pavia had a pass to Jonathan Brady for like 32 yards.
Yep, he did.
And it was just one of those plays, and that led to a field goal. It's 10-7 into half, and then MTSU had that missed field goal. They make that, it's 10-10 there. It could be a whole different ball game there. And so you just got to think, and then for the ability to be within one play, you were one play away, 15 yards from getting it. And you got to look at what was our success here. What were you able to kind of figure out on the defensive side of the ball? Because defense has struggled lately.
Yeah.
They've had some pretty tough games to swallow. That Jack State and Colorado State game. But this one, I just felt like they were able to, I don't know what the term I'm trying to use here, because I mean they allowed almost 200 yards rushing.
Right.
But I feel like they controlled Pavia.
They controlled him
to the best.
Yeah.
These good quarterbacks, you can't shut them down.
Yes.
The best you can do is control them. And that's what I feel like they did. They controlled the playmakers. And when you control them, you're forcing other people to make plays. Now, while yes, you're gonna have a lot of yardage at times.
You will.
They had, I think, 6 total rushers or 5 different people having a rush attempt. Mm-hmm. So there's going to be a lot of opportunities for them to run the ball. But again, MTSU, this season, it's going to leave a sour taste in your mouth, and you want to see change for next season. So you're just looking from the player standpoint. They want to improve. They want to see what they got, and that's their motivation. And if you're a fan, your motivation is what do our young guys have, and what are we looking forward to next season?
Yeah. I'm going to add one last little tidbit on that, because I think the motivation, like you said, is for the players. They care about this. They still want to go out there and win games. That is the inner competitive spirit that an athlete has, and I think all those players possess that. And they know they've made mistakes. I think Vadiato, Stockstill, everybody on that Middle Tennessee team. They know that they haven't quite lived up to the expectations that they would want this year, but I still think they acknowledge that there's a lot to be played for, and they still have a lot they can prove this season. If you go out and win 3 straight games to end the year, that's a pretty good springboard into 2024. So I think that there's still a lot to play for, but again, hats off to New Mexico State as well, because this team came in, and I don't know if a lot of people gave them a chance coming into Conference USA. So the fact that they've been able to turn this into a potential, I mean, they could be playing for the Conference USA Championship if the cards fall right, and it looks like they might. So New Mexico State, they're going to be a very, very solid team to watch out for. Their final schedule, I think they have to play, they already played Liberty. I think they got to play Jack State right before the season's over. But if all works out the way it should, New Mexico State is going to be a legit team, and they've earned their way here in CUSA, and you got to give them, a round of applause for that.
Western Auburn and Jack State to finish out the season.
Gotcha.
But as for the other teams in the conference, Sam Houston State got their first, FBS win in the conference, taking down the independent FCS school, Kennesaw State.
Future CUSA member.
So, future matchup there. But one game that I was interested in, and I know we were talking about it before, was the Jack State South Carolina game.
Yep.
And watching that game, it ends in a 10-point loss for Jack State, but they were making a winning drive near the end. And then that pick six just it was a crushing blow, and that puts the game out. But we really have seen a lot of obviously there's been some outliers. I know Western got a beat down from the Ohio State.
But they did.
But I mean, there's been a lot of interesting feel good stories for some of these, like especially for the new teams. Liberty we knew was going to be a top team, so you're not surprised that they're undefeated, sitting at the top of this conference. But Jack State has been one of those teams that you expected them to make some noise, but they're up there with potentially fighting for the championship game, and
had a schedule.
And so it's one of those things. It's very interesting to see, and you love to see that competitiveness of teams fighting. Yeah, you have one team that stands above the rest, and Liberty being undefeated and probably is going to win out for the rest of the season. They're probably going to be an undefeated team, but it's the ability to have some parity in coming forward. Because, again, Western had a kind of weird year. This year has been kind of sloppy for them. We've seen Western, they've been able to stand at the top at times. I know last year they also were kind of near the middle of the pack, but now they're the old people in the conference. They've been here for the longest, so it's going to be interesting to see how everything turns out, and you want to see the parity occur later on in the seasons.
I think it's going to be interesting to see how it works out for them. But you talked about Jack State and South Carolina. It was a really, really fun game to watch. Like you mentioned, Jack State really did a good job of making themselves known in this game. And, of course, it was the Battle of Gamecocks. And, the Gamecocks were going to win at some point. So
100% guaranteed.
I really did think the Gamecocks were going to pull it out. All right, enough of that. But okay. Anyway, they were able to rattle Spencer Rattler, I think, for a portion of this game. He still looked pretty good. I think he had a little over 300 yards. So
399.
Well over 300.
Yeah, I was going to say, I think he was one away from 400.
Yeah, so he did a really good job in this game. But they did get an interception off of him, and the offense was really, really good for a large part of this game. They put up 28 points. They were tied for some of this. Perry Carter, I mean, that guy was a beast in this game. 5 receptions, 106 yards, a touchdown. And, it looked like they would have the necessary ingredients to pull an upset. Plus, South Carolina had been on a bit of a slump lately, so I thought this could actually happen. I was pretty excited to see it all go down. Then you had the late pick 6 by Zion Webb, and that kind of put it away. But you still have to admire the way that Jack State came out and played against a Power 5, an SEC opponent for that matter, who's, considered by many to be the best conference in college football, whether you agree with that or not. So it's a very impressive performance by Jacksonville State. And like you mentioned, Matt, it kind of highlights how, like New Mexico State, they've really made themselves known. And it's a shame, it's a real shame that they can't compete for the Conference USA Championship this year, because they are proving to be a really, really good member when it comes to football. So, again, great stuff by Jacksonville State. And I'm curious to see how they do in the future. One thing that I did notice, Malik Jackson was kind of limited in this game. 3 carries for 9 yards. Now, I tried to see if there was like an injury or something, or if they were just resting him, but I couldn't find anything. So that's something that I was curious about. I think, though, if Malik Jackson had more of an impact in this game, it almost makes me wonder, could they have won? But I guess that's for the world of hypotheticals.
you know, it's tough to say because it was still a back and forth matchup the entire afternoon. And, you know, Gamecocks came in as a 15-point underdog, which I thought was rather low despite them playing a 2-6 South Carolina team who is just trying to find a way to get back into playing true Beamer ball and make another bowl game in back-to-back years. But, no, they did a tremendous job, like you mentioned, kind of containing Spencer Rattler a little bit despite giving up 400 passing yards. You know, Zion Webb was doing a great job in pocket, of course, until that last play there that kind of killed their chances inside the 2-minute mark. But, you know, you're right. It does bring up an interesting point, you know, about this whole probation period for new FCS teams transferring to FBS because we're seeing it with, you know, James Madison now.
Same deal.
You know, they're not getting any looks at college football playoff rankings because they are ineligible for the postseason. And yeah, it kind of hurts the players and the Gamecock fans if you're a Jacksonville State fan, because you're watching a team that has clearly succeeded all expectations and would have a normal chance of making a conference championship under normal circumstances with this kind of resume, and they're not going to get that same look because of this probation period. And sort of, you know, how do we approach the new rules for transition?
Yeah, and again, we could make this a full show, honestly, with this conference probation, because it's a very big and wide topic to cover. In my personal opinion, I think that if a team earns their right and earns their pay grade when it comes to a season, then they deserve to be able to compete for that championship. But I mean, I can see where maybe there are other sides to that story. I just feel for the players, like you mentioned, because they have played well enough to earn their spot in, but they're just not going to be able to get this opportunity at a conference championship. So it's a hard thing, but if there is any hope for Jacksonville State and teams like them and James Madison, the future looks really, 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 really bright. So excited to see where they go.
Yeah, just to wrap this up, I don't like the rule. I think it's not. I don't really get it. I mean, I guess something can be like, oh, it's just like we don't expect them to make them. That's what a lot of people probably think. It's like, oh, we don't expect them to make. But these teams are brought up for a reason. They're good football teams, and so they're going to cause noise. I mean, it's any given. The motto for the NFL, it's any given Sunday, any given Saturday. It's any given day that you can beat another team. They are playing the same game as you, so it's just it all comes out to that. But as for the rest of the football talk here in the conference, Liberty and La Tech had a little bit of a shootout. Liberty 56 points, so they're still flexing their guns at the top. And then Western had a little bit of a stumble they got the win, but it was a little bit of a stumble down in El Paso.
They were down for a big part of that game. I thought for a second that they might lose that one, but they found a way in the end. So kudos to them on that.
But speaking of Western, their volleyball team's coming to MTSU for the season finale.
Yeah.
They're top-ranked team, and I know MT's kind of like the second team when it comes to the Conference USA standings there. So big matchup there here in Murfreesboro. Ryan, I know you're going to be on the calls for those games. What's the inside scoop for the volleyball?
Yeah, tell us. Let's hear this.
Well, I mean, first off, you have just two tremendous teams in volleyball in general, because for MT, you have Adri Rhoda and Taylor Isert getting their weekly superlatives again. Rhoda for her Offensive Player of the Week, 32 kills over the weekend against Jacksonville State. Taylor Isert again, Conference USA Setter of the Week, 73 assists.
I thought it was a typo at first. I was like, wait a second, is this from last week? But they did it again.
Sixth in the nation in assists per set, just a little over 11.
Wow.
But then Izzy Vanderweely is a freshman for Western Kentucky, who also got back-to-back Freshman of the Week superlative for her performances. So you just have two teams who just rank highly in CUSA in offense and defense, who statistically are some of the best teams, not only in CUSA but in the nation. Fighting for a chance to make the NCAA. Now, of course, Western Kentucky has already secured the CUSA regular season title.
Right.
So they're done. They're going to get the 1 seed in the tournament. Of course, right now, MT sitting in the second spot, 2 games ahead of UTEP. But because they already beat UTEP, head-to-head, they're going to be the number 2 seed. At least they should be the number 2 seed in the conference tournament. So that's pretty much all said and done. It's a matter, can MT maybe scare Western a little bit this weekend and make a run in CUSA tournament, maybe turn the tables, win it. They could be looking at an NCAA berth. But it's all going to come down to how well Oscarson and Smith defend the block. Kayla Henley, Lala Janssen, Adriota can have to be 100% on the outside, looking for defense in the back row. Eisenhardt's going to be perfect because you're looking at a team that has Paige Briggs, who has 350 kills, a senior standout. You have Kennedy Coyle, Kaylee Cox, Callie Bauer, who's just a young sensation at setter who also has about 10 assists per set. I think even closer to 11 actually, right at the 1,000 assist mark on the season. So you're looking at 2 teams who are almost mirror images of each other. It's just that Western has been so dominant in CUSA history under Travis Hudson in his 29 years at the helm. I think 11, maybe 12 conference championships under his belt for Western Kentucky.
Dominant.
And just always has players that continue their success year in and year out. And, of course, Paige Briggs has been one of those players. So it's going to be interesting to see. Of course, you have it will be at Alumni Memorial, so you're going to have the Blue Raider faithful right behind them. But, Western Kentucky travels well, especially for volleyball.
Yes.
So I cannot wait to see what kind of madness we get to see on Thursday and Friday.
It's going to be a really, really fun matchup. And I do want to say this. I think that this would be, even if Middle loses, which I think there's a high chance that they could pull off the upset here. But even if they lose, think of it as a potential learning experience as well, because you can see what Western's trying to do and use that to your advantage in the Conference USA tournament, because it's very hard to beat a team like that multiple times, especially one as good as Middle Tennessee.
Yeah.
So you take what you learned from this weekend and apply that for the CUSA tournament. And if you win, then that's great too, because you use what you did and you use that against Western Kentucky, and you also be ready for whatever they may have thrown your way. I mean, see what kind of team Western is going to play like, which I'm sure that's exactly what they're doing right now. So Western, they're a really, really good team. Number 23 in the AVCA rankings, 14-0 in CUSA play, 24-4 overall.
19-game win streak.
Yeah.
And also, Logan Gravengood was Defensive Player of the Week, who is second, I think, or third in CUSA in blocks per set. So just another outstanding individual for the Hilltoppers.
They are really, really darn good. But Middle, they've got some weapons too. I mean, you've got Isert, who had, I think, 73 assists against Jacksonville State. They've cleaned out basically everyone this season. And really, Western has too. That's been the fun of it. Western has only had one match of their entire CUSA play that has gone to a 3-2 score, and I think that was against Liberty.
It was.
So when you look at how dominant they've been, they've never really been tested like this here in CUSA, and if Middle can put them in that adversity corner, I think there's a chance that Middle Tennessee could pull off the upset here, but it's going to be a fun one. I can't wait. I think that we'll see a lot of fans, because this is huge. This may be, and this might be a little bit of a hyperbole here too, but I think this could be one of the biggest matches in Middle Tennessee volleyball history, or the biggest series in Middle Tennessee volleyball history.
Well, certainly under Coach Crawford right now, 7th year, has yet to beat Western Kentucky since he's been at the helm for the Blue Raiders.
Yeah.
And they haven't really beaten the Hilltoppers in the 25-point era. You have to go back to when it was 30-point era before they even snuck out a win.
They've gone, is it 0-10 in their last 10 against Western?
Yeah.
Wow, that's crazy.
I mean, I don't even know when the last time they won a set against Western Kentucky, because it certainly wasn't the last couple of years.
Wow. Man.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's one of those matches. It's going to be packed.
Yep.
You're going to have a lot of blue, but also a lot of red. Again, it's just a quick drive down for Western Kentucky, and
100 miles.
And when you're a highly ranked team, your fans will travel with you, and so it's going to be interesting to see. Definitely, it's going to be very loud. So, it's unfortunate that the Friday game. I was hoping it'd be a Friday night game.
Yeah.
It's at 12. Yeah, it's such
1 p.m. Eastern,
1
noon
p.m.
Central.
Such.
Yeah.
I was like, I looked at the schedule. I'm like, okay, Thursday, that's great. 5 o'clock. Classes are pretty much letting out on campus, and if you wanted to travel with your, Western Kentucky, you can still leave around 3 o'clock. You get here, right around game time. So, But yeah, it's definitely going to be a very interesting game. I think the Thursday game is going to be the one that's definitely more crazy since what the time, frame and all that. But I definitely expect Friday as well still to be a very competitive game, but not have the same atmosphere. Just that 12 o'clock play time just kind of doesn't sit with me because a lot of people are at work and a lot of people are at school and classes are still going on. So it's not going to be as packed, but I know that it's still going to have a lot of fans are still going to want to see what's in store because, again, these could be the two teams you see at the championship game of who's going to come out on top.
I think that there's a good chance there will be. Going to be a heck of an atmosphere. And, yeah, check out Ryan on the call. Fantastic job as the volleyball play-by-play man. But we also saw, guys, last night, of course, was the return of college basketball. And we saw some action in CUSA, both here in Murfreesboro and across the conference. So did you guys have a few games that caught you by surprise or were a bit interesting?
Well, I mean, right here in town, we had, Memphis coming to play Middle Tennessee in women's basketball. MTSU coming off that, again, crushing loss to Colorado in the, opening round of the tournament at Duke. And so, they were coming in with a vengeance and looking to, hit the ground running. We saw in their exhibition games, they were, handling teams. And it was, they were coming out to a hot start there. But what I really like to see, what I really saw there between the two for Middle was definitely the presence in the paint. Anastasia Boldera, I think, had 24 points and, 12 rebounds.
23, yeah.
So a double-double there. And then having that presence in the paint, really helps, when you're, you got to play those, ground and pound games or the grit and grind games if you want to, since they were playing Memphis, a grit and grind, there. So it's definitely, hitting the ground running, wanting to see, what you got in store. And we saw a lot of great team basketball there. And interesting to see how the season comes again because, once again, MT enters as the top team of the conference, winning with the championship last year and making that tournament, berth. So it's going to be interesting to see what they have in store. I'm excited for the season.
I mean, he pretty much just said it all.
Basically, yeah.
I think what was impressive, at least about the Lady Raiders, was, only a 6-person rotation.
Yeah.
So they really kind of limited the depth at their own self. Coach Insel clearly had a plan only using 6 players, and it worked out.
Yep.
I mean, they outscored Memphis by 20 points.
Yep.
So it clearly worked, and you're right, Boldera doing a tremendous job kind of sealing up the posts and then scoring on the other end. So I don't really know what else more to say about that for the Blue Raiders. So they're already off to a great start.
Yeah.
Just really quick, if y'all have not seen it, I retweeted it in there's a highlight clip of the game, and Savannah Wheeler brings the ball up and hits a behind-the-back crossover, and she makes her defender touch the ground. Was holding on for dear life.
Really?
It's pretty fabulous.
I missed this one.
Oh,
okay.
It's dirty. It would make AI proud. It was pretty nasty. I'm not even gonna lie. Now she probably slipped. No. Nice, clean behind the back, got it, and that poor girl had a family, and I just sat there in awe. I was like, no, she made her touch the ground. It was pretty crazy. But yeah, that's all I had to say about that. It was nice crossover.
Oh man, yeah, no. Okay, I'm gonna have to see this now. I mean, if it makes you bring out the girl had a family line, then I got to see this. Okay, what I'll say about the game was that it was really awesome to see, like we've talked about, MTSU women's basketball just getting back to what makes them great. It's a lot of what we saw last year, and I was really impressed by Jalen Gregory. She had, if I'm not mistaken, 5 steals in this game, and of course, she's incredible from beyond the arc. She's the main 3-point shooter in Middle Tennessee's arsenal. But Savannah Wheeler, not a bad game either. 17 points for the Blue Raiders. She did a great job as well. One thing that I noticed, the Raiders only had 3 3-pointers in the first quarter and did not have any more throughout the rest of the game. I think that's something that will be addressed as time goes on, but it is curious to see that the 3-point arsenal was kind of limited in this one. Although Memphis, let's not forget, isn't a bad team. I think they were picked to be 3rd or 4th in the AAC this upcoming year. So this is a pretty solid Memphis squad, and Middle was able to pretty well control them throughout the majority of this game. So I think that just goes to show that this year, the Raiders are going to be as good, maybe better, than they were last year. So it's going to be a really fun race for them. I think there's a couple of other teams that could be interesting as well. one thing I also noticed was that we saw Western Kentucky have some issues with Mercer. They played them in the first game, and I don't know if you guys caught this, but they won 70-64. Now, head coach Greg Collins said they had some growing pains, and I've got to agree with him because we really didn't see the Western team that I think a lot of us expected in this first game. If the ball bounces on a few different occasions, they might lose this one. They didn't have a score over 15, and Mercer, I think, had 3 scores over 15. So Western is going to have to try to figure that out soon, or they may not be the team that we thought they were. But I just thought that was interesting as well.
Also, for the scoring half, I understand the opponents they played were not very well fit to play Conference USA teams. Florida International had 113 points in their game.
Yep.
Louisiana Tech had 93. No matter who you're playing, scoring 113 points in regulation is something to definitely jump off the page. Maya Cone had 20 points for FIU there. And so definitely, obviously, they're not going to replicate that every game, but 113 points against anybody, you got to hold it high. I mean, that's, there's still college athletes on the other side of the court. It's, it's not like they're playing a middle school team. I mean, so it's going to be interesting to see. Obviously, you can't overhype the first game. I know a lot of sports have that happen where you look at the first game and your team either looks bad, you're like, oh, this is we're done for, or your team jumps out to a hot start and you're like you get the hype train going and it just comes crashing and burning. So, but interesting to see 113 points in regulation time is still, and holding your opponent to 30 is definitely something to put a gold star on and hold high. So interesting box scores for Monday Night Basketball there in the college world.
Yeah, and I think the men's side was also interesting too. We also got to see Middle Tennessee play Northern Kentucky last night, and Northern Kentucky, they won their conference championship the year before, so it's not like they're a bad team. Middle Tennessee won by 17 points, and they did it pretty impressively. I mean, we saw Cameron Weston and Elias King both do what they do. They went out, they showed out, and they played well. So they had a 13-point run before half that really sealed this. They were up by 24, and they put in a lot of their bench players, their depth towards the end of the game. That's why the score wasn't quite as inflated as it could have been. They were getting experience for the younger players, which I think is a very important thing. But King had 14. We had Weston, who had 6 assists in this game. They're going to be a really good team, especially when those two guys are dialed in. I think that's going to make them a potential CUSA championship contender, but also Liberty. They're another team to watch out for. They just continue to excel in basically every single sport. I don't know what it is about the Flames, but they just win everything. But they won 103-43 over, let me check to see who it was exactly. Mid-Atlantic Christian, that's right. So that was incredible. And it wasn't even so much Zach Rode. There was a guy, Brody Peebles, who had 20 points in this game, 5 rebounds, 3 assists. Incredible player. He's going to be a guy to watch out for. He showed off in a big way, not just in the stat sheet, but in the eye test as well. So Liberty, they've got some other great players too. Zach Cleveland was another one, 13-4 in one night. And Rode only played 10 minutes, and they still were able to do all this. So all in all, they're going to be a very impressive team. And I think when all's said and done, perhaps the CUSA Men's Basketball Championship comes down to Middle Tennessee and Liberty, just like the preseason was predicting.
Yeah, I think the big thing to look at, too, of course, is coaching, right? And Richie McKay has been in the business for over 30 years now. Yeah. And he's led Liberty to already a couple of, when they were in the Atlantic Sun, a couple of regular season and conference titles, NCAA appearances, upset against Mississippi State a couple years back. So that certainly helps. And, of course, on the other coast, you have Sam Houston, who's coming off a 26-win season, already off to a great start, winning last night, defensively, pretty much the same team we saw last year where they were, I think, in the top 10 in defensive efficiency. So, I'd like to say that Sam Houston also might want to throw their hat in the ring for a good change of pace to who could take the CUSA crown. But it's going to come down to coaching. It always does in this league. But
that's
yeah,
business.
Definitely, Coach McKay is going to shake things up for the Flames in their debut CUSA season.
going to be a fun one. I think men's basketball, women's basketball, it's all going to be great to watch, especially in CUSA this year. So make sure to tune into some games or even go to a game. If you're in Murfreesboro, go to Murphy Center. If you're in Western Kentucky, if you're in Bowling Green, go check out the Hilltoppers. If you're in El Paso, go check out UTEP because these games are fun, these teams are hungry, and they play some quality basketball. So, I know it sounds like an advertisement. It kind of is. We're CUSA All Access, but it's good stuff. Genuinely good stuff. And speaking of good stuff, guys, the CUSA Women's Soccer Tournament was also this past week, and you know how much I love soccer, so I think it's only apropos we talk about it because it was a pretty dramatic tournament, all things considered. So we saw in this tournament a lot of interesting games and interesting matches, results that I didn't necessarily see coming. One thing that really stood out to me was that we saw Sam Houston upset FIU. Now, remember last week we talked about how FIU was resting some of their players, including their goalie, Itiza Vanoli. And what happened was that she gave up 3 goals in the first half. So a lot of what we predicted, maybe we're like Nostradamus. We can just see this stuff coming. And it ended up happening.
Lottery if I could. if I was that good, I'd play the lottery. I wouldn't, But, it's one of those things, when it's like that, when all your damage is done in the first half, that just shows that it was. We talked about the balance of rest and play. With the splitting of the two, you wanted to get the break in between. It shows in that first half you were trying to get your feet under you.
Yep.
You were trying to, get ahead of the game, and it was a little too late. You turned it around and shut them down in the second half, but it was just your offense couldn't get that. They were lost 3-2, so it's one of those things that adding fuel to the fire of, do you rest your players or do you not? We see plenty of times for any sports. But yeah, and then also WKU the same day got upset.
Yeah, same day by Louisiana Tech.
Yes. I guess it was in Ruston, correct?
It was in Ruston, so that home pitch advantage probably helped out a lot.
So a lot of interesting action there. So it'd just be interesting to see how it goes. Congrats again to Liberty.
Yep.
For
the
winning
USA championship.
Another one where they just seem like they got the number in the sports department.
They excel in everything.
But
it's crazy.
It's always, obviously, if you're the team on the other end, it's not fun. But from an outside standpoint, with no hat in the ring here, you want to see these upsets. That's what we live for. You live to see, this, school is, ranked, 6th in the conference, and they've taken down this top seed. It brings parity and it brings, fun to the conference. But it's one of those things as, if you're FIU, do you look at it as, Sam Houston and FIU were, right there, 5-4. So It's not like a huge upset, but the lower seed won. The lower seed, it's one of those things, who starts out hot, who gets going, and they got going quick and they were ready to go. And FIU just kind of got caught napping, and, you look at it and you're like, dang, what could have been? But very entertaining tournament weekend there. Definitely was, fun to watch, and hats off to Liberty. They played a heck of a game, and it was great to watch, I will say.
And one thing that I noticed, think about this. If Middle Tennessee doesn't beat FIU on October 27th, that upset probably doesn't happen. So it's those kinds of things, and when you're kind of taking your foot off the gas, that sometimes leads to your own demise. Heck, we've seen it in the NFL playoffs before. The Packers, for instance, rested their starters, and I know it's hard to revisit. I know it's hard. But I think it was 2011. They lost to the New York Giants when they rested their starters after being 14-1, and they came out flat. All the receivers could not catch. They could not catch anything that day, and that was a Super Bowl team. I will die on that hill. That was a Super Bowl team, and we blew it because we lost all of the catches. So it was sad. But it's a demonstration that this can sometimes happen if you don't keep your players active. I think it depends on who you ask, but this was a demonstration of that. But as for the championship match, it was incredible. It was Liberty and New Mexico State, as we've mentioned. Those two teams had been the two teams all season, and I actually thought that the Aggies were going to pull this one out. But what happened was it was back and forth the whole match. We saw the best of both teams. Rachel DeRuby, I think maybe the midfielder in Conference USA, put in another goal. We saw New Mexico State also with Gianna Valenti. Just want to make sure I say that name right. Valenti put in a goal as well. And then this was the big turning point, guys. So it was the 85th minute, and it's 1-1, right? So it's anybody's match. This is when it's winning time. You've got to step up and make your name heard, and that is what Liberty did. It was like that scene, you remember from the Spider-Man movie, the first one, the Sam Raimi trilogy when Peter is dodging Flash's punches? It was kind of like that, I feel like, for everybody watching, because the world slowed down for a second, and then this goal went in. And it was Sadie Holland, who is a really good player, maybe a little bit more unsung on a team as stacked as Liberty, but she put it in the net and got Liberty the win. And it's like we mentioned, Liberty is a team that has come into this conference and proven themselves time and time again. And I think this is a demonstration that they know what they're doing, they know how athletics work, and they care about athletics. So we've talked a lot about that today. It's been a theme, these new programs making a name for themselves. And I think a lot of people questioned bringing in certain members of Conference USA, but a lot of them have been home run hits so far in many different sports. So Liberty proved themselves, and they're going to be a force for years to come. I was very, very impressed, and CUSA Soccer ends in a big way. And by the way, Liberty takes on number 6 Georgia in the NCAA tournament for their next match. So who knows? Maybe there's an upset to be sprung there. But pretty impressive stuff, all things considered, from the Flames.
I'm just trying to figure out how you fit in the
Spider-Man. Yeah, I was.
Yeah, that one kind of got lost on me
because
too.
I'm fairly certain that movie, came out when you were born. It's 2002.
I was actually
really
not born yet.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
I feel old. I mean, gosh, really?
You feel old?
2002.
Man, 2002.
Smart.
Oh, I watched it when I was a kid, though. It was
it's
a
a good
fantastic movie. But, I grew up on the Sam Raimi trilogy. I mean, those were fantastic movies. Spider-Man 2 is still one of the best movies of all time. That's just a fact. But, no, yeah, I think that all in all, Liberty, they were heroic like Spider-Man. They did what he did. They saved the day. For themselves, but they got the win.
For themselves,
yes.
not for everybody
not
else.
For everybody,
they ruined the day for other people,
yeah.
not save.
They saved the day when it mattered the most. So there's a lesson to be learned here. But
is there?
The more you know.
The more you know, the more you know. I mean, it's a fun time basically. All the sports are happening right now, and I can't wait to see what else happens. So I think that it's about time to wrap this thing up. But before we go, any final thoughts? Anything that's been going on that you guys want to discuss?
No, you.
You're giving me the honor.
I'll give you the floor. Yeah.
Well, I appreciate it, guys. I really do. I'm just really excited for college basketball. That's all I got to say. I'm super excited. Off topic, not Conference USA related. The top team in LSU got taken down on opening night in Vegas, so it's going to be interesting to see. Obviously, I think LSU it's one of those games, with how the Chiefs kind of got, took out the rug from under them against the Lions in the opening night matchup. So it's one of those things. It's early on. Can't overreact. Yeah, it's an interesting storyline, but college basketball is back. I'm very excited, especially on the women's side. There's a lot.
Yep.
Caitlin Clark, Angel Reese, Haley Van Lith, also on that LSU team. Paige Buchers is coming back from her injury at UConn. So it's going to be interesting to see here. Those are all, they're all in their final seasons, or coming up on their final season. So it's gonna be very interesting to see, how the draft stock fills out there, but also in the conference. It's gonna be interesting. Can MTSU, go back to back, and hopefully if they get back into the tournament, can they cause a little bit more damage than they did last year? So it's gonna be interesting to see. I'm ready for some basketball.
Yeah, and LSU lost that same Colorado team that
MTSU,
so,
in last year's NCAA tournament.
It's all full circle.
It all comes full circle at the end of the day.
Get us out of here.
All right. Somebody wants to go home. But, I mean, it's been a fun week, guys, and I can't wait for next week. Next week will be our final episode of the semester for CUSA All Access, so, sad stuff there. But it's okay. We are going to find a way to make it the best episode of the season, so just make sure you stay tuned for that. It's
Ryan, you should dress up. That's what you should do. We should all dress up. It's like Halloween all over again.
Okay. All right. So Ryan doesn't want to hear that, but thank you all so much for joining us here for CUSA All Access. For that man over there, Baby Gator, for the man to my left, Ryan Martinelich, I'm Dylan Simmons saying so long. Thank you all so much for watching, and remember to always have an electric night.
We're both on your